Hello there, and welcome to another episode of EDH Geeks. And in this episode, we are discussing perhaps one of the most talked about cards from Commander Legends. It is super controversial. It is, of course, Jeweled Lotus, and we're discussing how busted is this card. And the answer may in fact surprise you. So first off, before we go too far into this video, we first have to read Jeweled Lotus and what it does. Jeweled Lotus is a 0 mana artifact. You sacrifice Jeweled Lotus, add 3 mana of any one color to your mana pool. You can spend this mana only to cast your commander. So the most obvious thing in the world, and everyone will bring this up, is the comparison that this is essentially a Black Lotus, except that it can only tap to essentially cast your commander. And Black Lotus, in case you didn't know and are new to Magic, is one of the most broken and powerful cards in Magic. It is also one of the most expensive cards in Magic. Some of the cheapest versions of this card are fetching over $500,000, over $600,000 for this single piece of cardboard rectangular playing piece for a collectible or a playable card game, which is absurdly ridiculous. And in case, once again, if you didn't know what Black Lotus does, it's a 0 mana artifact. You sacrifice it and you add 3 mana of any one color. It is an absurd card, and this, of course, is just as absurd. I know that this is quote-unquote what we would call a fixed version of it, to a sense, to a degree, is because they're trying to fix this card to a degree so that people can with quote-unquote the fixed version of this card as much as they would like some version, I think, to be indexed, because there certainly are a lot of people out there in the world of Commander that would like to play with Black Lotus, but it is impossible. Once again, I talked about this whole idea during my reserved list video, that it's simply infeasible to get this said card and play with it. It is absurdly dumb that this card is the price that it is. And look, the thing is that I'm going to go here is I'm going to take this off the rails a little bit for a second. This is not as busted and as broken as what some people would think that it is. It is absolutely busted and broken, but I believe that it is only as busted and as broken as what the deck that it is going into is doing, more or less. Because this card is what I will call an enabler card. If your commander is very, very powerful and does very, very powerful things, then just accelerating you into casting your commander much quicker without people being able to respond to it as easily is just absurdly powerful. This card is going to go in a lot of CEDH decks and going to be a heavy staple there. I believe this isn't going to see much play outside of CEDH decks. I really don't. If this card, as far as I'm aware, currently is looking at a price point for the regular at $150. So that is a ridiculously high price point for this card already before it's released. Now that price may fluctuate somewhat. But just for a regular version, already at $150. Look, this is a mythic to start with, so it's going to have a limited amount of supply for what it is. So of course, yes, it is a chase card, and this is a bit of that sort of, it's meant to sell packs. It's meant to be a piece that people go, oh, I hope I open that, even if they perhaps don't specifically want it for a deck. Perhaps it's just that whole, well, it's the dumb bum mythic that everyone wants, though, that they can hopefully sell it off for something. It's just absurd in that regard, but not just in the regard of it being the card that it is, but in the regard of what price it is and what it represents in that sense. And I actually hate this kind of card as well. But, you know, it's not up to me to say what people can and can't play or whatever. And I understand, once again, that the rules committee are sort of sitting on their hands for a little while with this card. They think, okay, well, we'll wait and see, because I'm in the agreement with them to say that this card won't see very much play, I don't think, outside of very constructed, CEDH decks. And that's fine. If CEDH players don't care about this being in their format, which I don't think that they will very much, I think that this will not have no effect on casual play in Commander, because once again, the price point for this card, even if it goes down, will be out of the range of most people, and even if it becomes in the range for most people, I think that the policing on this card will be very high. Look at Sol Ring. Sol Ring is policed very highly in the format, and that, though that is a busted card, it is nowhere near as busted as this card can be, especially if you can recur it and other things like that. But of course, those are specific synergies within some specific decks. But again, I just don't see this seeing very much play outside of those higher end, more powerful decks, because once again, people are not going to want to play with decks that are running cards like this. And when you're running one of these cards, you're basically just running all the 0 mana or free artifacts. So at that point, you're basically playing most of the CDH deck anyway. And at that point, what else are you doing other than trying to just combo off and win as quickly as possible? So basically, at this point, you are playing a CDH deck because you are putting in the pieces that mean you get out to such a fast start, you have such a redundancy of free mana and protection for what you're trying to do, because you're trying to do it as quickly and as efficiently as possible once again. So I think if some people open this card, they'll be very excited and happy to open this card, but I just don't see that many people playing this card outside of CEDH. If you open it in your limited pool and in your draft, this is going to be absurdly dumb in your limited pool, of course, and that's going to lead to some feel bads in a few games here and there when it happens to happen. Look, late game, even if you draw this late game and it happens to cheapen your command attacks, I still think that that's really good. But the most busted thing of it is coming out early, of course. Coming out on turn 1, 2, and then you get your commander basically, 2 or 3 turns earlier. I think it's much better in 1 or 2 color decks, because once again, it's 1 mana of any color. You can't change the colors of mana that this is going to produce, so you can't produce 2 or 3 colors with this artifact. You can only produce 1. So in a mono red deck, this is very good. In perhaps a very blue heavy or very green heavy 2 color deck or what have you, a very white heavy 2 color deck, or any 2 color deck that's very heavy 1 color, probably very good. Even if you've got, say you've got this and you've got a Boros commander, right? I drop this Jeweled Lotus turn 1 and a mountain on turn 1. Then I proceed to crack Jeweled Lotus for 3 white mana. Now I can cast my 4 CMC Boros Commander on turn 1. So that is a bit absurd, but perhaps that's the kind of thing that the Boros and Mono White and Mono Red need as a bit of a leg up in Commander. But you know, it's just the way that this card is designed, what it is, and where it goes, I believe it fits. Like, it's pretty clear. And it's just not really that good as far as, once again, seeing more casual play. It will be heavily policed, and people will just not want to play with this sort of card more than a few times. If you happen to get it very consistently, they'll tell you to kindly move yourself to the CEDH table, or try to find some other games, please, or take that out of your deck, or something to this akin, at the most polite ever. But anyway, guys, I wanted to talk about this very dumb card. It has caused a lot of controversy. I believe it's going to cause a lot more controversy. I think you need to look at this from a little bit of a wider perspective. And yes, I understand that this is a little bit predatory of a card in a way, and I just think that I personally am going to house ban it on myself. I'm not going to use this card in any deck at all. If I find myself opening one, I'm selling this thing. It's gone. Anyone who wants it I'm pleased to sell it to you. I don't care what you do with it, as long as I don't have to play against this in perhaps like Cranko or something like that, where they get their Cranko out on turn 1. That would be absolutely ridiculous. Things like that. So, yep, that's all I've basically got to say for this about this card. I don't think it's nearly as good as what some would think that it is, because it is restricted to playing your commander only. But I still think that's very strong, especially in the decks that can take advantage of that. If their commander is very good, if your deck is built for competitive play, if your commander can recur artifacts or has synergy with artifacts, or if you can find other synergies in your deck to keep abusing this will be absurd. Even if you get it the one time, I still think it's going to be really good. Even if you draw it late, I still think it's worth the slot, because it's just, when it's absurd on turn 1, 2, 3 even, it's just way too good. So it's just an auto run in those decks. But anyway, as I said, thanks so much for watching. Hope you have enjoyed, and hope you will tune in yet again to another video. Please like, share, subscribe, and help support us on Patreon.